Yeah, so this one is FedRAMP authorization designations. Basically, this is sort of a realignment of terminology around, the categorization, the system categorization that we're familiar with from FIPS 199, low, moderate, and high, to more of a number system that to me is sort of reminiscent of DoD with their impact levels, right?
Yeah.
So, there's that. There's this need to kind of align with some of the other RFCs as well that they mention, and then what they're trying to do, and when they talk about the motivation behind this change, is disambiguating the whole authorization term, right? Like author, and this is something that I know Pete's mentioned, numerous times since I've known him. There's a lot of ambiguity in the federal government, like in the whole industry, about what is a FedRAMP authorization versus a agency authority to operate, and these are grounded in legal concepts as well, right? Because really, the authority to operate, ATO, that whole language is a statutory requirement that's put on agency officials dating all the way back to the FSMA legislation, E-Government Act. And, there's a long legacy of legislation that's been amended over time, but it really goes back to that, right? FedRAMP originally for years was basically a workaround, right? It was a way to get that, and they called it a provisional authorization at first, right? Meaning that FedRAMP themselves would do a provisional authorization on behalf of an agency that would ultimately pick it up, look at the risk, and then adopt it, right? But FedRAMP could never buy off on the risk for an agency. Like by law, only an agency official could do that for systems that they operate. So that's really the big thing, is getting away from that authorization word. Like we need to get over to something different.
Certified, right?
Yeah.
And we have seen this in the industry also with like CMMC levels, and to your point, the DoD impact levels. So I think it's aligning with the standard nomenclature, for lack of a better term. I will say that I appreciate the table that they have in there that map current Rev 5 authorization levels to the certification numerical levels, right?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that really clicked for me, and I didn't see this in the motivation section here, but the video that FedRAMP cut, Pete was like, I don't want people to, we need to get away from this FedRAMP low. People assume that means like it's low security. Well, that's not really the intention of low. Low is the category, not the security level. So it's a way to just like, that's too problematic, and we're going to switch to this numbering system that makes more sense. Yeah. So, I mean, basically what they're, in the table here.
Yeah, that was the table I was referring to.
Yeah. So, they're moving to this system and there's also two different terms that they're bringing in. One is certification, right? And that's going to apply more to the Rev 5 requirements, or the Rev 5 pathway. And then there's 20X, they're calling it validated. So two different, not only the numbering system, but then there's also the, validated equals it went through the 20X path, certified equals that it went through the agency path.
Well, I also think, the validation piece if it's the nomenclature that we're using with going through the KSIs, where we're that continuous validation of KSIs and just a mindset for 20X.
Yep. Yeah. And in this new system, certified level 1 is kind of low impact SaaS. That's the alignment. And then FedRAMP is also being very descriptive here about what this really means. And it's that, FedRAMP has validated that there's enough information, right? There's the information required, to make a determination if a system's adequate to use, right? That's very different than FedRAMP saying that, we believe that this system is secure to this level, right?
Right.
That's a very different.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know.
And
I gotta look, see how
that's
many comments we have on this one.
and that's actually okay. I mean, it really is in alignment with how things have been on the agency path all along, right? I just don't think it's ever been as strongly worded as it is here. That FedRAMP is not making a security determination here, right? They're certifying that there's enough information for an agency official to make a determination. Basically, what they're saying. Tanner, what were your takeaways on this one?
To
It
me,
looks like
this
you
was,
might be one of the commenters here, Tanner. Just saying.
yeah, one of the, there's a comment down there from me, but it actually came from a conversation I had with a customer. And it's my only concern, I guess, with this one is probably the best way of saying it is during agency adoption for 20X that's coming in Q3, Q4 this year. I initially had this thought, but also a customer voiced that what's the perception of agencies anticipated for the words certified versus validated? Is one more robust than the other? Is certified, quote, more good? I think that was another way that one of the commenters put it is more good
more
than
better.
exactly. Yeah.
Better
And that was, I think that's a valid conversation to have, especially if you're talking to somebody that's not a SME in the space or, agencies, they're going about their day to day and managing their current ATOs. This is all going to be brand new to them. So curious to see how that perception is going to go. I don't think it'll be too problematic, especially considering I think this is a lot easier to follow. I've seen some comments that are saying that the new FedRAMP certified or validated levels will be more confusing in light of things like CMMC and DoD, because you'll have a bunch of level 1s, 2s, and 3s floating around. But during conversation, folks might get lost in the translation between, are we talking DoD level, are we talking FedRAMP certified level, validated level, etc. Overall, I think this one is probably the most important to review first, because I think it's the easiest to interpret, but also it very much informs the rest of the RFCs. So if you haven't reviewed them, I definitely would recommend reviewing this one first.
Well,
Yeah, I have to say that the distinctions I've thought all along that FedRAMP low should be FedRAMP low, or level 1 should be level 1. Like the idea of having validated versus certified, I think is gonna raise questions. Does it mean that one's more suitable than the other? Does it, what does it imply? So I do think that that's very valid feedback. I also know that, like, just over the years and having conversations with so many different customers and trying to walk them down the path of what they need to do, I would say there's enough complexity built into that to begin with, without adding, more levels and more, and then a split between two different paths. So now it's like, okay, I envision for the next 3 years having to teach people that, well, it's not really modern anymore. It's now this, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the split is very, and I just had this thought. I think the split's very interesting considering the fact that we're planning to phase out Rev 5 in 2027. If you're establishing this new nomenclature and saying, hey, FedRAMP Rev 5 has become certified, 20X has become validated, but at the end of next year, we're hoping to phase out Rev 5 completely and move fully to 20X for all CSPs. It may cause more confusion than it clarifies, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah, definitely. Anything more on this one? I mean, the other thing that I think that, RFC 20 goes through is the life cycle for each. And they want more opportunity to actually, get the full life cycle represented. Because in a lot of cases, there will be a provider that's wanting to get involved or has actually started the process or maybe is months into it, but they can't get on the marketplace to send that signal to the federal government, that they want to do business. And it's not just the federal government; it's other. There's so many cases that we've seen of other cloud providers that want to use a service that they use in commercial, right? But they're not equally authorized, or they're not, authorized at the level of information that they're going to be putting there. So other CSPs are going to be looking for that data as well. And I had to ask a cloud service provider the other day on behalf of a customer who's another CSP, hey, are you guys going to be getting your IL5? Because they wanted to use it in a IL5 capacity for DoD. Yeah. So having a way to signal that, signal intent, signal your plan, would be, I think, a benefit to agencies and the industry.
Yeah, I mean, my only other piece of feedback on this is, like, I agree with you with it, with having had many conversations with a lot of customers over, FedRAMP High IL5, FedRAMP Moderate IL4, and all the cross mapping. I think that aspect of the conversation will be easier. Some of the confusion, I'm hearing what Tanner's saying is, when I say, hey, I'm certified level 5, does that mean I'm IL5? Is there reciprocity there? I see there could be some confusion there. Hey, I am level 5, so I can sell in DoD space. Well, they're different. They're different, right? So it's just a different way of explaining it to customers, I think. I mean, it's really just about getting our heads around changing it up. I do think the conversations around authorized, like PATO versus ATO versus certified versus validated, I think those conversations will be a lot easier, because in the past that was very confusing for customers to understand. Like, FedRAMP cannot give you an ATO.
Right.
It's a provisional ATO, and then an agency still has to give you like a reuse ATO, essentially, back in the JAB days. I think it'll make those conversations easier, because to me that makes sense. Basically just keying back on what you said about, it's really up to the agencies to accept the risk. FedRAMP's not going to accept the risk on behalf of the agencies. So,
right. Yeah. 100%.
Awesome. So
I really love the marketplace improvements, though. I mean, the only other thing that really jumped out at me is the nuance between, certified level 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Is just really about the balance improvements, and then there's no corrective action. The balance improvements thing to me is gonna, it feels like these things are gonna merge into level 3 and 5 at some point, so. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of them being, independent like this.
I do wonder if it's going to do that, because like even the DoD impact levels, it's what, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Like there's no 3.
Yeah, they were like, why do we need a 3? I don't know.
Where did 1 go? Right. So
and I think it's very smart by the PMO to incentivize CSPs to go ahead and start implementing those balance improvements now in anticipation for pursuing certified level 4 or certified level 6, because the balance improvements are a vital part of the AFR KSIs for 20X. And, like I mentioned earlier, 20X going the way of the dinosaur next year, it positions CSPs in a good place to be prepared for that transition by having some of the KSI requirements taken care of.
You mean Rev 5?
He means Rev 5 going the way of the dinosaur.
Go Rev 5.
Is not going the way of the dinosaur.
20X is going the way of the Flash right now. But,
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we still have 3 or 4 more KSIs to cover. 4 more RFCs to cover.
Are you going to be the
KSIs?
Count?
You like that?
Are you going to be the count?
I'm going to be the count. Yeah, Sesame Street.
3 RFC.
1 RFC. Love it.
All right, RFC-21. Expanding the FedRAMP Marketplace.
So again, this one is scheduled to close on February 19th. We're still on the first 3 that close on February 19th. So again, I'm going to say it again. Comment if you're hearing what we're talking about and you like it strikes a thought. Go in to these. We'll have the links below on whatever platform you're listening on. Go in and drop a comment to the PMO. That way they can get as much feedback as possible.
Yeah, so really, this RFC is all about expanding the FedRAMP Marketplace and making it more like a marketplace, right? Because the whole idea of a marketplace is you can walk in and kind of buy something.
Exactly.
Right? So I mean, I think that's the vision. It may take a lot longer to get to the point where you can add to cart and pay for it right there. Yeah,
that'll be something.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the vision. What's the pricing information? What's the puts together data about, about each CSP. They also, talk about expanding the marketplace to provide information about advisory and consulting companies, and also to get sort of their pricing structure and things like that, so that it's a shopping place to go to pick up advisors and those who have GRC tooling and platforms and other cloud services that could be leveraged in the process.
Right. I mean, I really see this RFC as, coming directly from feedback FedRAMP received from the agencies, right? Like, hey, we're in your marketplace. Yay. I can see that the FedRAMP authorized. I can see who the 3PAOs are. But now I've got to reach out to them and do all the things, right? Which I think it's just, to your point, makes it more of a marketplace. I do think it would be really cool if it is something, kind of like the AWS marketplace, right? Where you can, I want to buy this here. And I think that could really open things up for the federal agencies looking to do these reuses, or, make it easier for them to review the package, review the KSIs, or, that constant validation for 20X, right? I think this is just another movement towards that optimization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think this aligns. Or go ahead, Jason.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, this aligns perfectly with what the PMO has already done with the ADS balance improvement, the authorization data sharing balance improvement, which is where they've defined requirements for the trust center. So that trust center being a public web page where CSPs can share authorization data that is publicly available, such as KSI validation status, or corrective action status if applicable, but then also offer like a private view where customers that have already purchased or are already sponsoring that provider can sign in and see more specific details or things that might be redacted to the public view. So that trust center, I know one of the requirements here notes that the trust center link has to be included as part of your marketplace listing if you're a provider.
Oh yeah, great call out. And really, the trust centers are that extension of the marketplace, I think, in part of that vision, right?
Yep. And it also adds, I just happened to read this, like I was thinking about it from the agency side, right? But if you scroll back up to summary, Jason, you can see, or is it maybe a little too far? The fourth bullet down. The independent assessors will be required to provide additional information, including pricing structure, right there on the FedRAMP Marketplace, so that even CSPs looking for that independent assessor, it can help streamline that, make it a little faster. I think it'll also make it a little more competitive.
Should be interesting.
Yeah, I think we all know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but we'll see.
The industry has put similar comments in to Jason, where they talked about,
Yeah.
pricing is complicated.
It is.
How do you represent your pricing structure accurately so as not to overpromise, but also show yourself as competitive to the market? So,
right.
Yeah. Interesting is
it gives all your competitors insight into that as well. And and then you've got, what I would be afraid of is the scoping,
right,
is going to be very narrow in the pricing that's put out publicly to keep it as low as possible. And then
super small infrastructure running on all containers.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Yeah. So outside of that, I think it's good stuff. I mean, I
think it is.
Well, and I think critically it gives like our customers, our CSP customers, another way to signal intent earlier. Another way to signal that you're serious about getting into the marketplace, because like they say, in the motivation section here, that one of the main ways that CSPs do this today is by doing a big press release. But then it's like, then what? Are they a year later, are they still serious about it, or did they back off of it, or did that RFP fall through, or what happened?
Right.
So this is just a way to keep that signal there and then update along the way.
Yeah, and Jason, if you scroll down to it says cloud service offerings in the preparation stage. It's one of the subtitles, the major sections. They've also, going back to what we talked about in RFC-20, They note that there's the new paths for authorization, or excuse me, certification / validation, have the preparation state, which is the first stage in the process. Formerly this was either FedRAMP in process or FedRAMP ready, right? And there's
this is ahead of that, in my opinion, because ready, to be ready, you had to be prepared already, and then go through a readiness assessment. You already had to have a production, level system.
Yep. Well, let me clarify what I mean by that. I agree. I think that preparation doesn't require the same level of effort that Ready does, nor does it necessitate FedRAMP sponsorship like FedRAMP in process did previously. But it is still equivalent to those two in that this is the new first stage that you can be listed on the marketplace. Previously, getting listed on the marketplace at all, that first stage either cost a lot of money or sponsorship already. And now there's an option for kind of like the future authorized or certified CSPs can be listed ahead of time, and then that can inform sponsorship discussions way earlier and long before a large investment, time and money wise, is taken by CSPs. So the preparation stage is, I think, something that might go under the radar for a lot of people. It makes me really excited.
Yeah, if they're asking you to have some things on your website. Oh, this is for advisors.
Yep. You have advisors, assessors.
Yeah, the preparation stage, they've essentially noted that there's a small subset of requirements specific to authorization data sharing and collaborative Conmon, which is the updates that they're making to the Conmon review process. Obviously, at this stage, you wouldn't have a sponsor yet. And then you have to demonstrate continuous progress, and you have 1 year to become FedRAMP certified or validated once you get that preparation designation. So you can hit the running very quickly and still have a year on the marketplace before you're required to even go through an assessment per se, or a year to get your certification and validation.
Right.
That kind of aligns with what they're doing now, right? With the current, you have a year from
FedRAMP Ready.
Well, not even from FedRAMP Ready, from that kickoff meeting with the PMO.
Yeah, in
you
process.
then have a year, to go in process, you have a year to obtain that ATO.
Yep.
So to me, it kind of aligns with those timelines because, again, they're not really doing the FedRAMP Ready thing anymore. It's more of a.
I think they had too many that were
level.
staying in process, kind of indefinitely,
right?
And then that would raise more questions, and it's like we need a way to get them off the marketplace if they're not proceeding through the process,
right?
But having advisors, that's something I remember thinking about, years ago, that it'd be nice to. Back when we were just doing advisory, it'd be nice to have kind of a way to get listed there.
Right. I mean, do you think that would also require the A2LA certification that current assessors need to have to be listed? Or
I mean, it's very notable that they're not requiring that here.
Right. That was what I was getting at.
And A2LA and ISO 17020 is all about the assessment process, not knowing
Advisory.
how to prep for it. So I don't think that would be appropriate.
Well, there are attestation requirements. There's not really any corrective actions, like you haven't failed to meet any of the requirements. Cool. Anything else of note for this RFC?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing for independent assessors is requiring the pricing info and all that. There's a whole separate RFC on that, RFC-19.
Yeah, but it doesn't really say it says pricing structure, like how they price it. I don't know. I mean, I think that could be open to interpretation a little bit. Like, maybe it's.
I think it could too, but going back and listening to the videos that FedRAMP cut on these.
I think they're going to have high expectations for.
What they don't want to hear is feedback that the price said this on the marketplace, but I got charged that, or I got quoted this. So
a lot of the comments that I've seen on this RSC is around what is FedRAMP's specific guidance on what is defined pricing structure, what is the rubric that assessors need to meet. Same thing for advisors. What is a rubric that advisors need to meet in order to provide that pricing structure? So, and I think that'll help FedRAMP be protected from claims that their requirements didn't protect CSPs enough from that exact situation you described, Jason.
Yeah, and and I get it. It's tough. Even we have some very big clients, right? That
Yeah.
the scope of what we do for them is completely different
Mm-hmm.
than the scope that we do for a 20x customer. A smaller CSP that's going through 20x, and then everything in between. So I
That's
get
very
it. It's very difficult to come up with like, here's my small, medium, and large advisory fee when the scope of what we do for certain customers varies so widely.
Well, and there's also a lot of engineering work that we put in for a lot of customers too. And there's,
Mm-hmm.
continuous monitoring work. Continuous
Yeah.
monitoring varies greatly depending on the scope of the environment.
I mean, we have a customer now with how many thousands of endpoints?
Right, exactly. It's like, holy smokes.
22,000.
Yeah. So I think the clear pricing structure, it could be, how some of these EDR solutions price their packages, right? Like X to Y number of assets be in this range. Another range would be in this price point. So, to me, that would be clear. But that's really the only way I see to meet this. How that fits for each individual assessor. For an assessor, I would think that would be reasonable. As far as pen testing and red tape, to me, unless you, it has to be endpoint. Like how many different?
The red teaming we've seen all over the place.
All over the place, right?
Yeah. From $5,000 to $35,000.
Correct.
So
and it's the same exercise, right?
Right.
For the red team.
Yeah.
Pen testing, I can understand depending on how many endpoints you have to pen test. So, but I think you can use the same strategy that we were just talking about.
Right.
But,
all right. Anything else we want to bring up on this one?
Go leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment. Don't comment on our video. Comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Comment on GitHub.
We will not be copying comments from our video over to GitHub.